Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, Bespoke. Good morning, Rich Girl. Good morning, lovely Lady Vanessa. How is everybody today? We are going to have a good time. Good morning. I have officially set my timer so we can go to break around 11:30, and I am ready to go. Excuse me for the technical difficulty delay getting in this morning. Periscope was trying to stop me from being great, but I'm here. So we're going to get started in just a minute, just giving you all an opportunity to share this broadcast, as also I am going to share it with some people. Good morning to everyone. Good morning, Prophet Jonathan. Thank you for all for coming in. And we are going to be talking today. We're going to be talking today about relationships. And we're going to talk about family, and we're also going to be talking about dating. We're back in this book. I know I'm not going to be able to hit everything today, so I'll probably be back in her book one more time next Tuesday. Getting serious about getting married. We've done several installments of this on our Teachable Tuesday, so you can always go back into my archives and just look at the ones that say Teachable Tuesday, and you'll be able to see what else we covered in her book. So today she's talking about kissing, dating goodbye, and the concept of kissing, dating goodbye. Also, there is a book called Kissing, Dating Goodbye by Joshua Harris, and he's actually the first person that I came across that had the concept, really introducing it to the body of Christ as to kissing, dating goodbye, and the difference between dating and courting. So I do have that in one of my library's archives, but I don't have it where I am today. But I do recommend that book. Oh, wow. Well, God bless you, Bespoke. I'm glad that the word ministered to you today, to you yesterday. So today we're talking about reasons why people might want to kiss dating goodbye. I know for my own life, I'll just give you, a little spiel about my story. I got saved, and I say saved meaning rededicated my life to the Lord, because I had gotten saved at 13, but then I backslid at 14, and then I rededicated my life to the Lord at 18. And I made a conscious decision at that point. I hadn't heard about these books or anything, but I had dated in the past, right? And I had had enough experience with how things didn't work out for me to decide to just kiss dating goodbye altogether. And I remember saying to God in my own prayer life, in my own prayer time, that the next relationship that I got into, the next person that I was going to be in a relationship with, I said, is going to have to be my husband, because I don't have time for the foolishness. And I made that decision at 18, in my second semester of college. And so from my own personal desire to not be playing games, right? I made a decision that I was going to take my dating life and kiss it goodbye. And I said to myself, I'm going to focus on my schooling. I'm going to focus on ministering the gospel to people. And, I did want to get married, and I was like, I'm not trying to get married at this point in my life. But at the same point, I was like, I'm not going to do the dating anymore. So if any person approached me, I would tell them I don't date. And I got looks. I got the rolling of the eyes. I got, who do you think you are? I got the gamut of that from gentlemen at the time who were trying to approach me about dating. And I was very, very staunch in my response that I don't date. And I stuck to my response. Well, make long story short, I got engaged at 19 to my husband, and we went through a courtship process, engagement process, and I got married at 22. And now this July will be 17 years of marriage for us. So all I'm saying is, if you have a made up mind, if you have decided to let go of what society thinks you should be doing, and unfortunately even now the church thinks you should be doing with your dating life, and allow God to really speak to you through the scriptures and speak to you through the word of God about how you're supposed to be possessing your body as a single, spending your time, because it's not like I said I wanted to get married and then I didn't do anything. I actually spent my time reading the scriptures, reading over relationships in the word of God, understanding what God says about marriage. Because a lot of times we simply go by what we have seen, or we go by what our family says, or we go by what we've seen around us happen in marriages. And so because I came out of a household where, yes, I had some extended family members that were married, but in terms of my immediate family, my mom and my father never married. So, my experiences, I could have let my experiences drive how I was going to behave in the future, but I didn't want to do that. So what I did was I said, God, I know what I've seen, but I want you to teach me in your word what marriage is really supposed to look like. I want you to show me in your word what you think about marriage. I want you to show me in your word the importance of the marriage covenant. I want you to show me in your word how I'm supposed to be conducting myself as a woman of God. I know this sounds very simple, but it worked. And so while I was going to the school of the University of Wifehood in the scriptures, while I was focusing on making sure that I was the kind of person that somebody would want to marry, God gave me my spouse. All right. So he was not something I was looking for. You can actually check out our story of our courtship and all of that. It's on my YouTube page under the playlist Relationships, like it's written in the title here. And so I was not looking for him. I was looking to understand marriage and how to be the kind of person that is ready for marriage. Because a lot of people want to be married, but then they get into marriage and they're like, whoa, I didn't know marriage required this of me, or I didn't know marriage required this of me, or I didn't realize I was going to have to be selfless, or I didn't realize I was going to have to make sure that my decision making is in alignment with my spouse. Those are the things that kind of people don't really talk about, right? They talk about the bliss part. They talk about the fun. They talk about going on vacations. They talk about, the enjoyments of marriage. But also marriage takes work. It's blessed work, but it does take work. And marriage takes communication, right? Marriage takes a level of selflessness. Marriage says, I'm going to take my eyes off of what I want, and I'm going to put it on what are the needs and the cares of my spouse on a day-to-day basis. Some people are not ready for that level of looking to the needs of someone else because they don't do it in their single life. So, those are the things that I'm talking about. And somebody made a good point of saying that no matter how much you prepare for marriage, you'll never be fully ready, which I do agree. You'll never be completely ready for marriage, but you can be prepared to the extent that you are preparing yourself to be the kind of person who can be in a lasting marriage. you can prepare yourself for that. All right. So I just wanted to put that caveat out here. All right. So she has a chapter that says, say no to the dating game. And so when I read this, I was like, wow, these are some of the things I considered as I decided to say no to the dating game. And I was excited because somebody else was thinking of these things and actually put it in book form. Okay, so let's check this out. She says, imagine that you're an employer looking to hire someone to be the president of your company. Resumes come in and you find one that looks promising. You decide he may be perfect for the job. His current employment, age, looks, past experience seem promising, with one problem. You have no way to verify his work experience. Was he a great worker, someone to be trusted, or was he lazy, sloppy, and fired at each one of his previous employers? With no way to check out his credentials, your only option is to spend the next 6 months interviewing this one candidate before you feel comfortable enough to offer him the position. If after those 6 months you decide he's not the right candidate for the job, you have to begin the entire process again. How frustrated would you be if you had to go through that multiple times? That's what I thought. There's no consensus in the Christian world on dating. At what age it's appropriate to start, if ever. The true purpose behind it, from fun and recreation to searching for a spouse. The norms and codes of its practice. For example, who should call to ask for a date. Despite all the differing opinions about it, dating in all its various forms represents the present system we have to find a spouse. I think it is a broken system, and it may be time to call it quits. Despite the fact that men often resent dating because they have to foot the bill many times, I believe women pay a much higher price. As a means to securing a spouse, dating is unfair to women because it often does not accomplish its goal of marriage and leaves women vulnerable to remaining indefinitely single. Now, she says a lot there. I'm going to go back and start with one of the first things she said. And that is, there is no consensus in the Christian world on dating. Somebody tap the hearts if you've heard at least 2 or 3 different versions of how you should date in the church. I know I have. Tap, 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 tap. So the first problem she's pointing out is there's no across the board consensus on it. So on one hand, you have people saying date as many people as possible, throw them all into the barrel of possibility. On another hand, you have some people that counsel date one person at a time, date them for 3 to 6 months. If it doesn't work out, move on to the next person. So she's saying, and she's making a good point here, that there's no consensus in the Christian world on dating. All right? Here's a second one. She says, dating is unfair to women because it often does not accomplish its goal of marriage and leaves women vulnerable to remaining indefinitely single. All right? So, one of the points that she puts here, because I'm not going to go over all of them, is dating promotes a lack of equality. Dating promotes a lack of equality. She says, in its most prevalent form, dating is initiated by men who pursue women for companionship, sex, living together, or marriage. So when someone says they're dating you, it's not necessarily for marriage. It's not necessarily that it's going to lead to marriage. They could simply be dating you because they don't want to be alone. They want companionship. Or, I know with Christian women especially, sometimes they start out dating you, and they will initially go along with your desire to remain abstinent. And at a certain point, If they cannot convince you to not remain abstinent, then the relationship is over. And I've seen this with not just men who aren't Christian, that I've seen this with Christian men too. And then we have to counsel, pastors and leaders have to counsel the woman who is broken up over the fact that I was dating this person 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, a year, 2 years. And then that person breaks up with them and says, I got tired of waiting on you to break your vow of abstinence. So now she has put in anywhere between 3 months to 2 years into a relationship that went nowhere. And so she's starting again. Another one, living together. Let me tell you, I tried that one time in my life. Somebody say one time. And I should have known better. All right. I'll be honest. I should have known better because I grew up seeing the results of what happens when you live with a man and they don't marry you. I saw it. I'm not going to go into other people's business, but I saw it in my family personally, and I saw the result of it. It never went anywhere. And even after that person, the statistics say that people who live together before marriage have a greater risk of divorce. And I saw specifically in 2 cases where both parties lived together with the man for over 7 years. They wound up getting married, and in both cases, they are no longer together. All right. But research also shows that if you choose to live together with your partner before marriage, you stand a greater risk of actually divorcing. All right. So dating initiated by men who pursue women for companionship, sex, living together, or marriage. That means that it's not necessarily going to lead to marriage. Though many people believe that it's perfectly okay for women to initiate a dating relationship, the simple fact is most women don't. Because that's the way it is. A man has the ultimate balance of power in dating. He looks around at his leisure, decides who he thinks is the most physically and oftentimes emotionally attractive, and asks her out for a date, all on his timetable. Listen, Prophet Jonathan, all on his timetable. What does that mean? He asked her for a date on his timetable. That means when he feels like it, when he gets ready, he's in control of the timetable of your relationship. A woman waits for a man to become interested, and when and if he asks her out, her only power is a decisional one, whether or not to accept his invitation. Now, ladies, this is an important power. Pastors will tell you this. Why am I saying pastors will tell you this? Because we are the ones that if you make a decisional choice that brings you harm, we are the ones who are going to have to counsel you about this decisional power that you have. I'll give you an example. I'm not using names. Someone comes to a pastor and they say, "This is Johnny. I'm thinking about dating Johnny, but I have some concerns about Johnny. Johnny has a habit of smoking, but Johnny's really interested in me. But Johnny has a habit of smoking. Johnny likes to stay out late at night with his friends. Sometimes I call Johnny and he doesn't pick up the phone. But Johnny is really interested in me, Pastor. I'm considering getting into a relationship with Johnny, right? Because Johnny is interested in me. Oh, but Johnny goes to church. Johnny has a heavenly language. Johnny has some very interesting activities he's involved in, even though he goes to church. He seems a little on the spooky side, but I'm willing to, deal with Johnny spiritually. Somebody said bye-bye, Johnny. And so the pastor is listening, okay, to what you are saying because you've been approached by someone who's interested in you. Maybe you haven't dated in a while, and pastor is listening to what you're saying about Johnny. Remember, you have the decisional power to say yes or no to Johnny. So pastor listens, and pastor is listening to you, and pastor is saying, I think that you might want to pass on Johnny because I see where you're going. I've seen your spiritual life. I've seen your growth. I've seen your maturity. And it doesn't sound like Johnny is a good fit for you. Now, the pastor doesn't tell you whether or not you should choose Johnny, right? But the pastor says to you, I don't think, based on what you've said about Johnny, based on what you've told me, I don't think Johnny is a good fit for you. Johnny may be interested, but it seems like you and Johnny would be unequally yoked. You called the pastor back, because y'all don't talk again. You called the pastor back 30 days later and says, you and Johnny are engaged. Now, your pastor has already given you some initial clues that you and Johnny are probably not compatible. You and Johnny are now engaged, and you want your pastor to give you marriage counseling. Your pastor has two choices. Number one, your pastor can say, I've already counseled you that you, first of all, should not even be in this relationship with Johnny because it appears that you all are unevenly yoked. Or your pastor can take you through marriage counseling in the hopes that you will see in marriage counseling that you all are unequally yoked. All right? In this case scenario, let's say you all go through marriage counseling. In the marriage counseling, pastor is talking about marriage. He's talking about the covenant. He's talking about what is required. He's talking about fidelity. He's talking about the characteristics. He gives you all some activities that you need to be doing on your own. And then you all continue that counseling. You all maybe you've agreed to 3 months counseling. And in the counseling, you see that Johnny does not want to participate. You see that Johnny is bucking against counseling. You see that Johnny makes disparaging remarks about why do you have to go to counseling. You see Johnny getting angry about things you're asking him to do in regards to marriage counseling. Remember, your power as a woman is a decisional one. You go through the marriage counseling as best you can. Sometimes Johnny comes. Sometimes you come. Sometimes Johnny comes along with you. Sometimes Johnny is late. But the entire process, Johnny has really been bucking against. He finished the marriage counseling, but he was really bucking against the entire process. Now, you decide to marry Johnny. 3 months after you marry Johnny, you need to see the pastor for a meeting because Johnny has knocked you upside the head and you want a divorce. Why am I giving this scenario? I'm giving this scenario because I've seen it happen very often. And I would venture to say the pastors who are listening have probably seen it more than once. So ladies, understand your power is a decisional one in the relationship. He may be pursuing you, but at any point, you still have the power of decision to say, no, this relationship is not working for me. When you get married, that power of decision now becomes a whole other legal issue, because now you have the law involved, you have covenant involved, you have a judge involved, you have your leadership involved, you have everybody you invited to that wedding involved. As my father in the faith says, maybe if we required those who want to get a divorce, maybe if we required them to come back and stand in front of everybody they got married in front of, maybe we would actually lessen the rate of divorce. Because you really have to give account to everybody you stood before and gave a witness to, that you promised to love, honor, and cherish this person until death do you part. So the point that I'm making here is that in dating, she says, there are no real checks and balances. A woman feels pressured into accepting invitations from less than worthy candidates. Her veto power isn't much of a bargaining chip, because the downside of saying no is losing more time until the next offer comes along. So that's what she's talking about, this balance of power in dating. All right. Here's an example, a real life example from her book. She says, Sally was in her late 30s, owned her own home, and had a respectable job and a decent savings account. She was dating someone who, though older, was a pizza delivery boy. I was shocked. She actually became engaged to this individual, which was even more shocking. At some point, she looked up and thought, this isn't fair. The engagement ended, and I have to admit I was relieved. Women are generally beholden to men for asking them out, and men are indirectly encouraged to seek out women slightly above them. Who's going to stop them? Since prospective suitors know they will not meet a woman's family on the front end, they can take the gamble of aiming high and hope to get lucky. In the past, men would not have been so bold because a girl's parents would tell any suitor beneath her to get to stepping. Those are my words. Dating doesn't put men and women on a level playing field. Women cannot control which man is interested. When he gets interested, or the direction of the relationship, without issuing ultimatums, let's get married or break up. And then she's back where she started, waiting for someone to be interested. Not a good place to be. So remember, we talked about before that there was a process previously that with the advent of dating, that process pretty much went away. Remember, a man could not approach a woman unless he had the permission of her parents first. He had to know her family. He had to know her parents before he even got to hello. It would have been hello from the other side, Adele. So in the past, a man would have never had the opportunity to approach women above his pay grade. Uh-oh. In the past, a man would have never had an opportunity to approach a woman above his pay grade. He would have had to go through her family, who would have vetted him, who would have checked out his vitals, who would have checked out, can he even afford my child? They would have checked out his mental state. That's the other thing that parents in the past checked out, was the mental state of the person pursuing their daughter, and his family would have been checked out. Oftentimes, in we're talking 2017, oftentimes people don't even meet the other side of the family until the wedding. I'm going to just sip my OJ. Listen, this is part 1. We will be back in 30 seconds with part 2. All right? We're going to cover one more piece concerning this dating today, and then we're going to move on and talk a little bit about family. I hope that you all will come back, jump right in, and we're going to go over one more point about saying no to the dating game. So thank you guys for tuning in to part 1, and I hope you will come back and join me in just a few seconds for part 2.